Hey folks, Steve here with another Fall of the Third Reich video. We'll be getting into turn 2 of 12 in this video. Glad that I was able to get some time to continue playing the game. Still a lot more for us to do, obviously. I will endeavor in this video to kind of move things along more quickly or to do less on camera just so you guys aren't sitting here for an hour and a half every time you watch a video. I feel bad that they're that long, but you know, there you go. So we're going to end up doing a few steps in this turn that we didn't do in turn 1, namely reinforcements and the strategic air phase, which can have some effects on a variety of stuff. We're going to take care of that, you know, kind of closely on camera as we kind of talk through how everything's going to work. And then as we get through the rest of these sort of, you know, pushing stuff around, attacking steps, we'll probably gloss over the details of that, and I'll simply show you the end result, and I'll do probably the combats off screen and all of that, just because, I mean, I think you guys have seen in the last video, even though we didn't do a lot of stuff, we kind of talked through invasions, so you kind of understand how invasions work. We did movement, we did some attacking on the Eastern Front, so those things are largely going to be the same across the game. The only differences will probably be, you know, when we start dealing with forts and the potential big events like, okay, Italy surrenders, we should talk through that. Doing D-Day and landing in France, we'll probably want to show a lot more of that in detail, and really more significant events that might come along through the game, but it should be a lot quicker. So if you were annoyed at the length of the previous videos, rest assured, hopefully, fingers crossed, things will go much more quickly, and the series will complete sooner. And I can move on to the next thing, which I'm not even sure what that will be yet, but more to come. So, okay, with the turn marker advance, we're going to go ahead and do that. And there are going to be reinforcements, so to be clear, and if you're familiar with war games, this is straightforward, you should know this already. But oftentimes, reinforcements are not the same as replacements. Reinforcements are new units that are added to the force pools into the game. And replacements are done separate from reinforcements. So while there will be some opportunities for the factions to retrieve units that were eliminated on the first turn, we are not yet going to do that step. Strategic air has the potential to affect your replacements, but not your reinforcements. So however badly the Germans get knocked on the air game, they will always get some new units for most turns, not all turns, but many turns of the game. So I'm going to go walk around the other side of the table. I'm going to grab the counters for this turn, and there's quite a lot of Axis stuff. There's a little bit of Allied stuff. So we're getting into now September, October 1943. So let's talk about what the Allies get. Well, actually, the first step is actually the Axis reinforcements. So what does the Axis get? Sorry. Well, they get a big old stack of guys. Quite a number. As I'm looking through this, it looks like there's I wonder if I should do this like my old videos where I would lay out all the reinforcements. There are 3 armor corps that are going to show up. 1 of a B strength, which is pretty good, and then 2 C strength, which are not quite as good. Then we're going to get a Mountaineer infantry. We actually get 2, 1 of a B rating, 1 of a C rating, and then we get several infantry units, 1 A rating, and 4 C ratings. So there's like 1 good infantry that comes in. The rest are not so great. So this is actually pretty sizable, and considering how many steps we lost last turn, I mean, that's really a pretty good set of units. German units are placed in any town or city in Germany or Bohemia, Moravia, so, you know, Germany and here. Here, in case my hand obfuscated. So a town or city with a line of communication and a supply German factory hex. So this is where we were going to kind of decide what front are they going to go in. And the thing about it will be that if we want to send something to Italy, we would need to put a unit in some town probably on the southern border with Italy, and then we'll have to either move them manually or via strategic movement later, move them down into Italy. So it's going to take some time to get these guys wherever you want them to go. Now this will be easier, I guess, in a bad way, later in the game when the Allies are kind of over here and the Soviets are kind of over here. Then you pop in your reinforcement. They don't have far to go to get to the front line. But while things are pretty stretched, these new units that are coming in won't actually get to the front lines right away, kind of no matter what we do. So we need to kind of think through where and how we want these to go. Because of the transit capability, the really important thing is just picking where on the sort of front delineation where we want them to go. And because no part of Germany that I can see is actually in the Mediterranean theater, it will be harder to get guys down here. That's for sure. Excuse me. So what do we think we want to do? Well, I think what we'll do is we'll put the mountain units in Innsbruck. Innsbruck is part of Greater Germany, so I'll place them there with a thinking that they will go down to Italy, which is more mountainous. That's where they'll end up. We can't get them there right away. The infantry, I think we want to give, why don't I just make this a little bit easier on myself? I'm going to give one, we'll make it two. I'm going to give 2 infantry to reinforce France, to just garrison more of France. So we'll plug these guys in. We'll say Aachen for now, and they'll get railed further afield. And then I'm going to put the majority of the rest of these units on the Eastern Front. So I'm going to put 2 Cs and an A infantry and all 3 armor units into the Eastern Front to be railed, outward, just as soon as they are capable. So Königsberg is part of Germany, so we'll just put all 3 armor there, and then we'll put all 3 infantry in. Doesn't really matter. We'll say Thorn. Yeah, Thorn. Sure, why not? I don't think it really matters here. But again, it's pretty far afield. They can't go very many places. Okay, so the Axis reinforcements are done. Again, the decision making here is really what fronts do I want to send these guys to. Maybe I should put more in the Italian theater, but I think we've got a little bit of leeway there because the Allies failed their invasion. Okay, so what do the Allies get for reinforcement? Well, and these are going to be sort of, we can't really pick where they're going to go. The first thing I'll show is there's another American mechanized unit, a 656. That's pretty good. It's got the 2E entry designation, which means it goes into the England box. So more and more stuff in the England box, nowhere to go for the moment. We do get a critically important beachhead marker. Now this one says, it's going to be hard to read because it's in white and the camera's going to have an issue. It says 2M, which means this will go into the Mediterranean box, which means we can use it to perform invasions. The designator is an AL, which is short for Allied, which means, and this is very important, that the Commonwealth can use this. In fact, so can the U.S. And so this enables us, wherever we can try to go with it, and that's going to be the real challenge here, I can use both both U.S. and Commonwealth units to perform the landing. All I have in the Mediterranean box right now is Commonwealth, but this will enable us to do it. And later, if we're able to, we can always move some U.S. reinforcements into this beachhead marker as needed as well. So this is a very good pickup for the Allies, and they will need to, they're going to need to use it to make headway. Now, I suspect, if I just look at Italy for a second, I think if things all went well, right, we would have had, the U.S. invasion here, Commonwealth invasion here. If we had rolled better, maybe we would have cleared some of this up, and we would have been working our way into taking all of Sicily. Then what we would have probably done is tried to do some sort of Allied invasion via the AL marker, either here, or maybe here, or something. But instead, we're having to use it just to get into Sicily, since we won't get that Commonwealth marker back until next turn, basically. So our hands are still kind of tied as the Allies. We're really kind of getting a slow start than where we would want to be. And then finally, the Soviet reinforcement segment is just this one infantry. Well, I guess it's showing as an army, but this relatively weak infantry army. So yeah, we'll plug that guy. Let's see, where can these guys go? Are placed on the east map edge or any Soviet-controlled town or city with a line of communication. Okay, so that's pretty easy. I think it makes sense to plug this guy in Kharkov, actually. Yeah, I think that'll work pretty good. Okay, well, there you go. Okay, well, that was the reinforcement phase. Pretty straightforward. Now we have the strategic air phase. So I think what we're going to do... Okay, so here's some things we need to think through. The only Allied air unit that we really have is Bomber Command, which is stationed for the Northwest. So the Bomber Command can either do factory bombing, can carpet bomb Northwest Europe, or can interdict Northwest Europe. And we know that as the Axis. So the decision becomes, where are we going to sacrifice? Where are we going to sacrifice our coverage? So if the Allies decide to do factory bombing, they're going to, we would have... The important thing is we have a Luftwaffe marker in the home box, which is where it was last turn, and we have to put one there. So the decision really is, do we want to move, instead of having the Luftwaffe in the Med and the East, do we want to move one of them over to the Northwest to stop any carpet bombing or interdiction? And I don't know that it really matters a whole lot. Yeah, so carpet bombing only helps the Allies in actual combat. So it allows basically a particular hex to have some odd shifts in the Allied favor. There's no Allied invasion of Northwest Europe right now, so we don't think Bomber Command would try to do that. Interdiction... I'm not sure interdiction would do a whole lot. Yeah, interdiction wouldn't help. That just hurts Germany's ability to combat. So I think maybe we just leave... I think for this Allied segment, or the Axis and the Allied segment, I think we keep everything as is. We'd want the Luftwaffe operating in the Eastern Theater to help. We want to use the Luftwaffe in the Mediterranean to help fend off the Allies. And we have the one in the home box we can't move, but that's going to still just by default help fend off the factory bombing, which, so if we just say that's what we're going to designate, then it becomes, here's the Allied air segment, and like what do they want to do? Well, I think the reality is they're only going to they really only have one option. Until we get the other bomber commands via reinforcement and Italy invading, we're going to take the bomber command and we're going to assign it to factory bombing. I think that's really the only option that makes sense. So there we go. The strategic air phase is now complete. Relatively straightforward. It'll be more complicated when we have the 8th Air Force, the American Air Force, and when we eventually have the 15th Air Force, which will affect stuff in the Mediterranean, which we don't have yet. I think we need to take Foggia, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, in Italy, and that would enable us to have the Air Force. So we're still a little ways out from being able to use that for now. So that's a straightforward task this time around. So next is the replacement phase. So this is where we have the need to look at actual air stuff. So Allied factory bombing is resolved at the start of the replacement phase. That's where we're at. We do have a guy assigned for factory bombing. The Allied player rolls 1 die for each of his air units assigned to a factory target. It's going to be 0 to 3. If the Luftwaffe has a unit assigned, the Allied player must subtract 4 from each die roll in 1943. Okay, so we're gonna die roll minus 4. Let's see. Okay, so it's going to be kind of a hard roll here with a minus 4. The Luftwaffe is still in good shape in 1943, I guess is the way to look at that. So we're going to roll a die, minus 4. All right, so I rolled a 2. Minus 4 is less than 0. Allied air unit is eliminated. Ooh, well that's not good. Maybe I should have waited to use it, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Okay, well that's unfortunate. The bomber command is temporarily eliminated for the moment. I didn't realize it was going to be that bad. I mean, I guess I would have had to roll a 5 or a 6 to get any sort of bonus there. Interesting. Okay, well, there you go. Unfortunate. Okay, well, yeah, not great. And now we're going to actually get to the interdiction bombardment segment. We don't have any of that. And now we have the Axis replacement phase. So as I look at the replacement stuff, so the Germans are going to get 2 per factory. And if I remember right, they have 4 factories. That would be an Essen, Dortmund, which are over here, as well as Berlin, and then the Upper Silesian industrial region. So that's 4 times 2 is 8. So they get 8 replacement points. Okay, this is an important restriction. The number of German Panzer replacement points, which can be taken as steps each turn, is a % of those available after the effects of factory bombing has been determined. So 50% in 1943. So we have 8 replacement points as the Axis. 4 of those 8 can be used to replace mechanized, panzer units, armor units. Okay, eliminated units re-enter the game as if they were reinforcements. And reduced units that are in supply are simply flipped to their full strength side. Now, there are some units that can't be replaced. They have a little triangle on them pointing down. And I think the Germans have a few multi-step units, so that's what I really need to look at. I need to decide how I'm going to bring these guys back in. So I realize we're 20 minutes into the video. I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to go make my replacements. I won't show you each and every one, but I'll explain what I did when I'm done. Once I've figured that out, and then the Allies will have some replacements, and so will the Soviets. So I'll be right back. We'll talk through the Axis stuff. Okay, so that was pretty simple. What I ended up doing was there were 3 reduced strength Panzer units on the Eastern Front. I spent 3 of my 4 that I can use for Panzer units, flipping them back to full strength. My thinking is, and this is always how it is with these war games where you are replacing steps, is it better to flip a reduced unit to full strength or bring back new units to the board? Now, more units means you can cover more hexes in theory, but you lose out on the time it takes for those new units to get to the front lines, which right now is a long time. The other thing being that, even if I bring new one-step units onto the board, my reduced strength panzers, if they just take 1 step loss, will be eliminated, and thus we play through the whole cycle. So my thinking is, replacing units to full strength makes more sense right now, anyway. That's my thinking. So I spent 3 there. I spent the last Panzer one bringing back my best, one of my A-letter Panzer units at half strength into the town next to Königsberg. And then I spent the other 4, which we have to spend on infantry, just building infantry units. I think every infantry unit on the Axis side is 1 step, I think. At least the ones that I could see on the board. So I took them out of the eliminated pile. I put a few over here to send down to Italy. I think I need more, and a couple over here just to help go. So, whether or not this is good play, I don't know, but it makes sense that I still need to be... I lost a lot of guys on the East Front. I need to send some guys down there. I need to send some guys down south to hold the Allies in the Med as long as possible, because I want to continue to contest that region and keep Italy alive if I absolutely can. So that was pretty straightforward. So the Axis is done with replacements. The Allies get quite a bit, but they get it segmented. So, I should also say, the minor Axis also get 2 replacement points, but I don't have anything to spend them on, because none of the Axis minor units have actually lost any steps. So, kind of wasted there. So two wasted. For the Allies, we're going to do what the game calls Allies, which they exclude Soviet as its own faction. The Allies here being the U.S. and the Commonwealth. U.S. and French are treated together. British and Commonwealth are treated as a separate category. So the U.S. gets 6 replacement points, and as far as I can see, I don't think there's anything to spend them on other than to flip our mechanized unit in Gala to full strength. And I don't think we can do any more. I'm trying to look at what else can we spend those points on. Okay. We'll go ahead and use, and we're allowed to do this. This is an important thing in the rules. There's this little cost chart in the book. I think it's on the player aid as well, but you can see, even though there's some back images, British Bomber Command can be replaced with a US RP, and because the US has a preponderance of that, we'll go ahead and rebuild Bomber Command with one of the 6 US replacement points. There's no French steps to replace. There's no other US steps that we can really make use of. So of the 6 the US get, we used 2, the rest are wasted. You don't get to save them. Then the British have 4. So I think we definitely want to get our paratrooper back, so that's going to be 1. And then we do want to replace our damaged units from the failed invasion, so that's going to cost 2. 1, 2, 3. And we would have 1 left, and looking around, I actually don't see anything else to spend these on. So I think the British are done with replacements. Now, in terms of where we put these replacements, the Bomber Command left the eliminated box. I put it back into the England box. I think that's where it has to go. It can't go right back to being in a factory bombing designation. The paratrooper goes from the Mediterranean eliminated box back to the Mediterranean box, and then the failed Commonwealth units that failed in the invasion, they were in the Mediterranean box. They are restored to full strength in the Mediterranean box. So as it happens, as we end the first replacement phase of the game, or I'm sorry, no, we got to do the Soviets. Okay, so let me just pause there before I was going to say what I was going to say. The Soviets get 10. Now, the Soviets only have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 units in the eliminated pile. They're all 1-steps. In fact, I don't think the Soviets have any 2-step units. I'm pretty sure they don't. I think everything they own is either 1 or 2 steps. So, the Soviets are going to spend 7 to bring back this mechanized unit and all these infantry. They will have 3 left over that they can't spend on anything else that I can see or find. And so these guys will go on the map. In cities or towns. Well, I guess we can put some in Orel, and we'll put a couple here. So putting some in Orel, putting some in Belgorod, and then it's really tough because in a lot of areas there's just not a lot of infrastructure for us to put towns, and that restricts us when it comes to command stuff as well. I think we put a couple in Leningrad, and then let's put one more here in Kursk for the fun of it. So there we go. Alright, so now the reinforcement phase is done. And what can we say about the replacement phase the first time we've done it here on turn 2 of the game? The Axis, for all it's worth, simply could not do much more for itself. I mean, looking at what we could even pick, we got 8 replacement points, but we had lost so many other points, like we're already on the back foot a little bit. Now we got a lot of reinforcements, so it probably balances out, but if you look at the grand strategic situation, the Axis has more stuff in the dead pile than they could replace. The Allies actually had more replacement points than they needed to replace, so they sort of got some wasted replacement points. But when you look at the actual situation on the board, it's interesting, right? I mean, we didn't lose anything as the Allies, really. We got everything back, basically, even with the failed invasion, which we lost on time. So I don't know, just kind of interesting to think through that. Okay, so the replacement phase is over, and now we go right back to where we were at the beginning of turn 1 with an Allied invasion phase. So the first thing we need to do in terms of an Allied invasion phase, before we even do it, is see, did Italy surrender? So it's here at the beginning of an invasion phase where we would check, hey, did we fulfill the conditions to cause Italy to surrender? The answer is no. We only have 1 town under the control of the Allies. That's not enough. So what I guess that functionally means is even if we did really well this turn, and we captured the right amount of stuff to cause Italy to surrender, they still would not surrender until the invasion step of next turn. So there's still basically a delay, even if we cause it to occur or meet the conditions. They will not trigger until the beginning of that Allied invasion phase. So I don't know, something to keep in mind. So I need to think through what I want to do in terms of an invasion. I only have basically the one invasion, beachhead marker to use right now. So in theory, I would move some stuff over here with the U.S., but nothing I can do. So it's just a matter of, okay, the British are going to try again using this AL marker. Where can they go that is helpful? Well, if we want to stick to a Sicilian strategy, it makes sense to try up here. That way we pick up another town, which would then mean if we can get into Syracuse, that would be enough to cause Italy to surrender. Even now, the Germans are starting to create their line to defend this, central Italy. So a lot of things kind of in the flux. The other thing we could try to do, and I'm not sure how good of an idea this would be, we could maybe try to get in here and take Naples, not Marseille, what am I saying? Naples, which is a great port to capture. And we've satisfied yet another condition. We would get a city, and all we would need is one more town. So if we somehow got, Palermo or Messina, that would be enough from there, or if we captured, some other town around here. That would be enough. We would be in good shape. So I need to think through what I want to do. The one challenge, if I decide to go here and target Naples for a carry-on activity, the one real big issue is that we would not have air support. So we wouldn't have an Allied air trace. We're too far away over here. We would need a trace to like 1, 2... I mean, it's just out of range almost. I think any which way I look at it, it looks like this is out of range of Allied air tracing. I would be doing it without paratroopers. I would be doing it without air support. So I would just be trying to land, I guess, and I could probably land, but I don't know. It's kind of tough. Maybe I should have put this unit in this coast instead of in Naples as the axis, but I made that mistake, so I don't know. Or I land over here and threaten Rome itself, in which case that would be cool, but the same problem kind of applies. We just don't have the Allied trace capability to do much, and everywhere I look, it's just really hard to get that Allied air trace. Even the Allied air trace that is over here, I'm sorry you couldn't see it. Okay, we could target somewhere over here because there's an Allied air trace marker, but we can't use it until turn 3. The Allied air basing hadn't been set up on Corsica until the time frame of turn 3. So we're sort of stuck. There's not a lot of great options. We could go over here to Taranto, or the beach near Taranto. Same problem applies. We don't have any air support, so we run risks. Might not be huge because that's an empty hex, but I don't know. So I'm going to take myself off camera. We're going to decide what we're going to do with our invasion, and then we're going to start to work through that. So when I come back, maybe I'll just show the aftermath of the invasion and kind of talk about what occurred. So see you in a second. Okay, so here is what I am thinking. If I try to go for Rome, there is a -1 due to the swamp, and I won't have my paratroopers. So basically 2 mechanized Commonwealth units could try to land. There would be a 33% chance of a failure, because if I roll a 2, instead of getting a by the fingernails result, it would be a failed invasion because of the -1 of the swamp. There's no defenders there, which means it's not further hurt, but we don't get any air support at all. So it would be very rough. If we manage to succeed, it's very likely that we would have one reduced unit, even if we manage to get there. If we then did that, we would have one unit of 5 strength that could, in theory, later in the turn, attack Rome. But between being able to do that, the Axis has a whole bunch of actions it could take to defend Rome and basically put those Commonwealth units under duress. So I think trying to go for Rome right now is ill-advised. Trying to go for the kill shot, I just don't know that it's worthwhile trying. I could be wrong about that. I mean, if somebody wants to be riskier, they could certainly try to do that, but I don't think it would work very well. I could go for Taranto. That would be a straight up die roll. I could potentially take something. But it wouldn't be enough. I think what I need to do, I think I need to stick with the Sicilian strategy. And here's why I say that. If I spread out my invasion, I'm going to be fighting, like the U.S. by themselves can't get any further. They can try to bang their heads against the Germans, but it's going to be kind of hard to make headway. What we need to do is get more support by getting the Commonwealth into Sicily, move an Allied offensive east, capture Syracuse if I can, which would be enough to cause Italy to surrender next turn. By doing that, we eliminate all these other Italian units, and they're really the problem. If the Italians are spread out, guarding different avenues of advancement, as long as they're there, they're going to cause a problem. They're going to be speed bumps. And the more time we're mired fighting in Italy is less time we have to invade the Northwest in France and basically grab these victory point cities. Because at some point I'd like to get into Athens as well. And there are Italians that can make that more difficult to achieve. So, I think it makes sense to get rid of Italy and all their units as fast as possible. Our route to do that is going to be in Sicily. So I think that's what we need to do. It has to be the strategy. And it helps because this landing marker is 4 within the Allied air trace. So we get all of our functional bonus that we really need to ensure that these things are going to succeed. So we're going to try again. We're going to use the same units. We're going to use our AL in the AL landing zone. Right? And we're going to put these guys here. The 2 Commonwealth units and the paratrooper. Okay, so then we're going to figure this. All out. Now, I'm struck once again by the challenge of discerning the terrain. Palermo appears to be rough. There's enough rough terrain in there for me to think it's rough terrain instead of clear. Though there's some clear map art there, but it looks to me like it's rough. So let's figure out what's going to happen here. We have rough terrain, so that's a -1. It is just a town, so that doesn't have any effects. That's a -1 for that. -2 because it is a mechanized Italian unit, so that's a total of -3. So not great. A -3. But that will be offset by the Allied air range bonus, so that's a +2, and the Allied paratroop division, which makes it a +3. So +3 -3 is a net 0, and we're going to roll a die. So we would love a 6. That would be very helpful. I'm not sure we're going to get it. Let's see what we get. Okay, we got a 3. 3 is by their fingernails. So, reduce 1 invading unit. So, this guy is reduced. Fair enough. Eliminate any dropped paratroop unit. So, our paratrooper goes in the eliminated pile again, unfortunately. Defender retreats 1 hex, attackers advance. So, let's say we're going to retreat him back, but these guys will get to advance here. Now, here's the important thing to keep in mind. We are projecting supply out from here, sort of out this way. The Axis Zocs keep that supply from getting over to here, but these guys are supplied from the beachhead marker itself. So for the moment, we're good. We also have the town, so we have some supply, but we're probably going to need to designate another chafe marker just to ensure that these guys can link up later. Now, obviously, it's a shame we couldn't eliminate the Italian defender, because now we've got to deal with all this business. And again, we don't have enough to really get as far as we'd like to yet, but we now have 2 towns. So if we can get a city, we'll be in good shape. If we can't get a city, then we're going to keep fighting Italians. So that's kind of where we're stuck for the moment in terms of our activity. But there we go. The Commonwealth are on. They're on Sicily, at least. If you count that as the continent, they're on the continent. Okay, so the Allied invasion phase is over. We'll now go to the Axis OKW, OKH phase. There was no oil bombardment, so we're not limited. So now it's simply a matter of deciding where we want to spend our 7 points. So the combination of markers have to be a total of 7. So now, I think there is like a consideration, like how much do we want to move down here as the Germans, and how much do we need to move on the Eastern Front, and what can we move that will help get these guys covered. So I need to think through this. Again, the main thing, everybody can move in the next phase, but in terms of what the markers are used for, they're used for attacking, so only units that are in range of a marker can attack, and it allows units to move out of an enemy zone of control if they're infantry for some purposes. So, that's really the main reason why we would do any of the above or otherwise. Okay, let me think through that, and I will come back and we'll talk action phase stuff. Okay, just coming back, what I ended up doing is I spent 5 command points, however you want to look at it, on the East Front for OKH, and then 2 in the West Front for OKW. What I did is I put a 2-value chit in Syracuse, which flips to a 4 range in a city. I just put it beside the city so it's less clutter. I know where it is. That's enough range to really cover the region, the front that we care about at the moment. And just to provide the Axis the capability to perform actions in Sicily, and maybe even do some attacks. Like I think it's feasible. We could try to do some attacks to try to blunt the Allies. So I think it makes sense. We can spend a little bit of our command to do that. Where the rest of our command, this was a tough call for the East Front because I don't know what we can do. Honestly, I think in a lot of ways, like there has to be something we can do to get to safety. Like I need to pull the Germans back, but we need to try to blunt the Soviet forces where we can, and maybe try to do some counterattacks. So what I did is I put a 3 in Bryansk, which enables us to kind of get this area right here, and then I put a 2 in Poltava, which is just enough to get these guys, though that's kind of a precarious thing. I would have put something in Dnipropetrovsk, but it still wouldn't reach far enough. So I think it's definitely, I'm running into some weird math to figure out, okay, if I spend if I spend 4 on the east front, my problem is I can't pick 2 and 2. You can't pick a 2, you know, 2 quantity of 2 rated markers. You have to pick a 1 and a 3 if you have a 4, or just the 4. So it's kind of weird, and this is all intentional, I suspect, that Ted Racer situated this, that like, even however you divvy up your command among the fronts, even that isn't super flexible. And I think that just reflects the fact that, like, you know, the burden of command and logistics are such that you really don't have a huge amount of capability. And I know some folks will again look at the way the game is designed and have some grief around, you know, what is this abstracting, what is this representing. I think it works okay. I mean, for the level of the game that this is, I think it works. And just to share an opinion on the game so far, I am enjoying the game. I'm going to be really sore about the map art when it comes to those rivers. I'm going to complain about them again, I'm sure. But so far, the gameplay is fine. The design seems fine in terms of what it needs to be trying to portray, and the inability for the Germans just to do everything that they want to do, and for the Soviets to do everything they want to do. The Allies can kind of do what they want, but they have a lot harder time getting there, and that feels balanced so far, I guess. So there we go. That's the setup. We're going to have some action in Sicily, we know that, and we've got some resources dedicated to potential counterattacks in the East Front, but we need to kind of rearrange our line, particularly because up here in Leningrad, as you can see, the Soviets have an opportunity to kind of start slipping around our flank, and we don't want that, so we've got to try to figure out a way to shorten our line and provide some stability to the line as the Germans. I think that's the real thing we need to do, even beyond counterattacking. I think that's what we need to be able to do. So, okay, with that, I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to take care of the entire Axis action phase off camera so that you guys don't have to see me pushing counters around. So that means operational movement, where I can kind of move everybody, and then the combat step. So any combats, and I'll talk about any combats that I conduct, or if I want to talk about it before I do it, I'll do that. But we'll see you in a second. Okay, so I think I'm done with the Axis action phase. The operational movement down here was very basic. I felt safe enough I could move guys off Messina. Only thing is, I still can't really get any good attacks. I can't leave this, because next turn the Allies will get their Commonwealth invasion marker back, and they could just invade right here with more units, and there goes Italy. So they have to keep somebody there. I might even need to swap some units around, honestly. Maybe that's what I should do, is do that. That's at least a little bit better. But I can't attack. It's just, I was figuring out the odds. It just wasn't worth it. So the whole moving in and out of Zox actually probably doesn't help us much. This didn't do. Having the OKW down here didn't matter. I had moved a lot of units around here. Basically every beach has somebody there that could, in theory, protect the invasion site, but it would probably be pretty nasty either way, so it's just a precautionary measure. We moved some guys around up here trying to cover all the beaches. I need another unit or so to cover the very last beach that doesn't have anything covering it. Whether or not what's there will be enough, who knows, but we'll see. Everything else was just barely shuffling stuff around. Here, trying to figure out how the heck do we cover the Soviets. And the one problem is, infantry units can't just leave Zox. That's the one problem. So the issue I was finding, I just need to double check this. Yeah, so because the units are engaged up here, and I didn't put OKHs along here, these guys couldn't retreat at all, which is a big problem. But I could move some stuff around here, but the best that I could do was try to put some mechanized Zocs so that the Soviets can't slip past them. But down here, I just don't have enough forces to make a difference. There's just too much. There's just too much there. So I'm trying to get guys, ignoring transit movement, because that won't even get them into the safest place. I'm just trying to get guys brought up and have mechanized Zocs so that we can try to have something so we don't just simply get encircled. So I've managed to do that. I've got some units kind of bunched up because I couldn't quite get them to where I want them to go. And rather than, do too much, I kind of pulled back where I could. Here, I actually did some counterattacks, and at the cost of 2 mechanized steps from full-strength units, which I flipped, I was able to destroy an armor Soviet unit and a mechanized Soviet unit. Now, the problem is, even though I did that, and the whole purpose of that was try to blunt the Soviet attacks forthcoming, you can see I've got multiple counters stacked up there of Soviet units that are still mechanized, that are still armor units that are going to move forward on the Allied move and continue to try to hammer the Axis line. I don't know what I can do as the Axis at this point. Now, I suspect, because of the historical variant and I had that really crappy Citadel attack, like if I had not done that, I'd be in better shape. But as it stands right now, yeah, I'm experiencing the historical drudgery that is the fact that we lost a lot of armor, a lot of men in Citadel, and trying to deal with that as the Allies is not working. You can see I left the Stavka markers from last turn on the board. I forgot to take them off. Don't worry about that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I could have done that would have changed anything. So we're going to go ahead and go to the Allied reaction phase, and we'll see what happens out of that. You can see that's the dead pile from the Axis attacks. Now we have the Allied reaction. I will show what is the result of that here in just a moment. Okay, with the reaction, the Allies tried to knock the Axis here. They eliminated an Italian unit, but they lost their paratrooper, and every other step but one step of the Americans remain, which puts them in a very precarious position, I should say, that they might get kicked out of Gala, honestly, at this point. I don't know if there's stuff that I'm just not thinking through right, but it was kind of situated where the Allies couldn't help each other anymore. They were kind of stuck, so if they could break here, they could at least start to threaten the backfield of the Axis, but we couldn't even do that, honestly. So that was a problem. The Soviets had a better deal of it. Over here, they did a reaction that brought them down, and they basically came through here and knocked an Axis unit loose. So they were hoping to completely eliminate the stack, but the idea is here, and you can see, is we can once we get operating in the backfield here, we can start to cut guys out of supply and cause all sorts of problems for them. We didn't quite get what we wanted there, but we tried. Okay, so we're done there. Reaction steps are over. Axis attrition. I don't see anybody that's actually out of supply. Everybody can count back somewhere. The Soviets haven't totally gotten screwed up. The only thing I need to make sure of as I'm looking at that is let's see. Could be one of these guys over here might have trouble getting somewhere. If that's a town, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then okay, yeah. So these guys are all. Yeah, these guys are all fine. Everybody's fine for Axis attrition. So that's the attrition step. Then we have exploitation, which I don't think there's much exploitation movement that we really would want to do in the West. So I'm looking through here. Yeah, well, we're definitely going to have exploitation movement that's for sure. See if there's anything else I need to be concerned with here. I need to plug the gaps, I guess. That's the main thing. Yep. All right, I'm going to take care of some of that movement, maybe to plug these gaps with some mech units. I'll be back. Okay, so there we go after reaction movement. It helped that we were able to get a few guys in a couple of better places, but, I mean, just trying to put Zocs so that they can't slip past, it's just very difficult to ensure that. And I think what's just going to happen is the Soviets are going to bust the line again somewhere. We've just got to start retreating back. Like, I don't know how else. I'm trying to figure out, like, how else do we retreat guys back? Because I'd love to move the entire line back as the Axis, but I can't do that. I have to very carefully move guys back, unless, you know, if they're out of supply, then they're allowed to move back regardless of Zocs. But while they're engaged, I can't simply just pull them back. And that's the trouble I'm finding. It's just hard to get rid of them. And what's interesting is, like, in the Dark Valley, you know, you weren't sticky like that. You could simply retreat. You could move the entire line back a hex and sort of play that game, you know, whether you were the Soviets or the Axis, sort of keeping one hex between you and the enemy, hoping a combat ship doesn't get pulled. Here, you can't even pull back unless you dedicate the logistic resources and command to pull back, which makes it very difficult to disengage. Maybe I'm missing something there, but it is hard to pull back. So that's as much as the Axis could do. And that's really the end of their turn. Maybe I ought to have been sending more guys east at this rate. I don't know. I mean, trying to set up the west so that at least it's well defended is valuable, but the cost is I'm getting chewed up in the east. Okay, so now we have cleanup phase, but then we get right into the Allied Soviet action phase. So, you know, I think just as a general matter of course here, it's going to be some pretty simple stuff. I'm going to get the Chafe 2 marker. I'm going to put it here on that beach just to make sure that these guys can get supply even if they're stuck in Zocs. The Allied movement step, I don't think there's much we can do. These guys are kind of stuck where they're at. They can't push past because of the Italian mech Zoc. We're stuck in the west. So I'm just going to go ahead and say for the Allies, I don't even think combat would be a good idea. 5, 6, 7, 8. No. No more Allied combats make sense to try here. It's just not worth it. So it's really going to just be on the Soviets. What do the Soviets want to do with their actions? So I'm going to... I need to place the Stavka and then do their movement and combat, and when I come back I'll show you the aftermath of that. Okay, here we are after the regular operations phase. The attack up near Leningrad went very poorly. We actually lost several Soviet units. That was because of a good combat roll for those units up there in the north, holding a victory hex, I might add. So Leningrad is actually it's not really in danger, but it went very poorly. It's going to be hard to get that back together. As we kind of go back down the line to these areas where we had Stavka, I blew apart several hexes that are getting opened up. Army Group Center is getting thrashed. We're going to see some nasty results of all of that. Even further down here, you can see we've knocked some stuff back. There were some retreats. We eliminated some units. We knocked a unit out of supply and eliminated it. Same thing up here, really. What I find is that because you can structure your attacks any which way you want, if you do a pincer attack, one attack to one side, one attack to the other side, you can do a third attack as long as you have structured it correctly. And have that third attack be set up where the opponent is out of supply because you're now applying Zocs behind those units. So it's kind of interesting. Like it makes it very easy, I guess, on the attack to kind of set these things up. Now you have to have the attack factors to really do it successfully, because those first attacks are going to be 1 hex to 1 hex. But it definitely, like, it to me is very attacker advantageous to be able to do that. You can really rip stuff apart, and you can see, you know, we've really put a lot of stuff at risk already. Even just this turn, as we're going through the motions here. So that's going to leave it to Axis reaction. I think the one move that might be worthwhile doing in the West would be... well, no, it probably wouldn't work. We could try to attack this last American unit down here, but at best we could maybe get like a +2 differential die roll, and that's not going to really be enough to do anything. I don't think. And we put ourselves at risk because the Allies are going to get to do their own thing. I guess it just depends on, like, well, with that being a rough hex, that makes it even worse. Yeah, I don't know that it's worth trying there. So I'm not sure. Yeah, exploitation, or I'm sorry, reaction in the West, I don't think there's anything that can really be done there. I'm not going to bother. For reaction in the East, though, what I think I'll do... yeah, boy, this is a tough call, because you really have to decide, like, where... what can you do? What can I do to salvage this situation? Well, I could target this hex or this hex as sort of like the target of the reaction, and I could try to pull some guys back. But is that even going to be enough? Like, it feels like the last attack set were so bad that it's really hard to figure out what can be done. And like, what units, you know, what can we even do here? And I think the other issue is that I think we're still affected by Zoc issues. So, like, I could say, let's go here or here. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe pull these guys off. That might be the best option that I have, to be honest. If I can only do it in one place, that's where I would do it, so that I at least am projecting a Zoc to slow down the Soviets. But we're gonna be cutting some guys, you know, out of supply some way, somehow, I think here. Okay, I think that's the Axis reaction phase. I don't think there's much I can do. So all the ally units are fine for supply. That I can tell. Yeah, they're good. So we're just going to go right into the exploitation phase. Down in the West, or out in the West, I don't think the Allies, Western Allies, can do any exploitation, really. So it's going to be down to the Soviet exploitation movement. I am worried I might have cheated before and moved and did reaction movement where the Germans couldn't, but it's too late now. If you noticed me cheating earlier, I'm sorry. I don't. The thing about exploitation movement is that they have to start in command, and I think somewhere over here I might have done something where they were not in command, maybe down here in the south. So My bad if that's the case, but too late, spoiled milk. I think the Axis is feeling pretty beat up as it is, so that's just the rub. So let me see what we can do here. The interesting thing is we can snake around a little bit because the major river hex sides, you can't have Zocs cross them, so we kind of have some ability to move around a little bit here, more than we might otherwise do here. This guy. So we're effectively surrounding this guy, setting up attacks further down the way. Oh boy. We are going to cause some big old problems, I think, for the Axis with this next move. But I really have to refer to the exploitation terrain movement costs for this to matter. I'm going to go off camera and finish this, and you'll see the aftermath. Okay, so it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. What I realized. What I want to be careful is overextension. So while I maybe could have moved Soviet units even farther, what I would have had to have worried about was were those units going to be able to be surrounded by the Axis. And so I took a more careful approach to advancing, but I'm going to have some guys out of supply over here. I'm going to have some guys that will probably end up being out of supply or already out of supply for the moment. That the Axis is going to probably be able to save some of them, but I think we've done enough now where, because we still had a lot of leftover mechanized armor units to move forward, that, we've got a lot of problems. You can see there's going to be a pocket that could come up here. The Axis has one town they control underneath those units that they will probably need to use to pull back, to pull units out and try to create some sort of line or something. I just don't know what we're going to be able to do to stop what's already happening. It's like, man, I've got to pump more units out. I've got to start setting up some more guys. I've got to transit my units and do the strategic movement to these cities. I've already got to fall back to these cities as quickly as possible. So that was the Soviet exploitation phase. It was pretty killer. And now we're going to have the strategic transit phase here in just a moment. Okay, transit segment is complete. Now, this is the first time we've been able to do it, but I believe that I could transit move units from the Mediterranean box to a beachhead marker. I think. I want to say that that's true. I don't see any reason why I could not do that. And in fact, I might even say that one of these guys is moved here instead to the ports. What's weird is that when they talk about the transit order, they talk about moving on land or between ports, units moving from one box to the other box, Med to England, moving to those boxes from a port or beach in the appropriate theater, and removing beachhead markers to put them in a box. But to me, like, it doesn't, I don't know where it explicitly says, like, here you're going to move units. It does say you can move units by sea, can move to a friendly controlled port in the same theater, or from the Med box to the England box, or vice versa. So it sounds like I can't actually transit to I can't actually transit to the beach landing place. I have to transit move to a port, which Palermo is a port. It's a port town. So I could move units here, but apparently not the beach marker, which is interesting. I would definitely move units to Gala, but I'm not sure that I can. I guess I could. I control a port. Oh, Commonwealth and U.S. units can't stack together. Okay, so yeah, I transit moved a unit into this stack, and I think the stacking is okay. Up to 3 combat units, so that's fine here. So they're making use of the port. They're shipping somebody in. That will help. But the Americans are kind of out of gas where they're at, unfortunately. But that's the rub. The Axis moved their guys around a little bit down here. You can see nothing too crazy. But on the East Front, we are trying to get something in these cities, if only to have something there for the Soviets to try to fight, because what we don't want them to do is just to slip right by and take those cities. We need them in terms of infrastructure, so these units, boom, 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 are kind of signaling here's where the new line is going to be, hopefully, if we can get these units moved back, if I can get guys saved and get out of there to save ourselves. We'll see how well that works. I think in the West, we could spend all of our points in the East, maybe, because in the West there's no point in spending points. We can hold what we have, maybe a bit longer. So we'll see how that goes. The Soviets didn't have any strategic transit. There was really nowhere for them to go of use. We already have stuff as set up as we can get in terms of the operational situation. So that's just what we've got. So yeah, victory point segment. We still just have the 1 victory point. I guess it's worth looking to see, is there an automatic victory for the Axis? No. Okay. So yeah, the game continues. That's the end of turn 2. The cleanup phase, which I sort of forgot to take care of before, would have me remove Stavka markers. So we will do that as we needed to, and we'll figure out things from there. Okay. Well, yeah, that's it for turn 2, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. We will see you in the next one. With turn 3, we get an invasion marker back, so we can start to figure out, how else do we want to proceed from here, and try to knock Italy out of the war. So far, tough going, but if we take Syracuse, that may be all we need to shut them down. So, yeah, see you in the next one, guys. Take care. Keep gaming.